Ryuji's bike's broken down in the middle of nowhere, so he's kicking the bike and cursing at it. Han asks if he's finished fixing it yet. That is, if kicking a bike can be said to be fixing it. While Ryuji continues abusing his bike, Han asks him where they're going next. Since they've been heading west, since leaving Kinecho, he asks if Ryuji is planning to go back to Sotenbori. Ryuji says, "Idiot, why would anyone want to go back there?" He says since the miso katsu and ogura toast were so good, next he wants to try another local specialty, okonomiyaki, Hiroshima style. Han's fine with going to Hiroshima since it means they could then continue on to Fukuoka and get the boat to Korea. Ryuji says he doesn't care about the Jingweon. Han says, "What you care about is irrelevant. This is your duty, decided by your blood." Ryuji thinks duty is dumb, but then they're interrupted by a couple of rough-looking guys who stop their own bikes to ask what they're up to. Han tells them Ryuji's bike's broken down, and one of the guys says that's terrible luck in a place like this. Ryuji tells them to fix it. The other guy says Ryuji has a bad attitude, but that's okay. It will mean he feels less guilty when they rob him of all he has. After Ryuji beats the would-be robbers up, he again tells them to fix his bike. But Han's already fixed it while he was fighting. They arrive in Hiroshima, with Ryuji complaining about his sore arse again. He asks Han where they are, and he says it's Onomichi Jingecho, so they're already in Hiroshima Prefecture. Ryuji says it seems pretty out of the way, and Han asks if he doesn't know. This is the home of the Japanese underworld's third power, Yume Rengokai. Ryuji says it's a bit of a dump, considering, but Han asks him to think about the situation. What would happen to someone from Tojokai who did something out of line in Sotenbori, for example? Ryuji says we'd fucking kill them. So Han warns him to be careful of what he says while they're here. Ryuji says it's not a fair comparison since he isn't Omi anymore. But Han reminds him of what happened in Kinecho. People think what they think. Han points out the fancy building on the top of the hill and tells Ryuji it's the residence of this town's leader, the president of Iwami Shipbuilding, Iwami Heitsu. He also uses it as a guest house for important visitors. Ryuji asks why Yume Rengokai allow the president of Iwami Shipbuilding to lead, and Ryuji tells him about Iwami's secret identity, that he's also the patriarch of Yume Rengokai, at least so they say, and he warns Ryuji that they're probably under surveillance right now. Ryuji says, "I see. Well, let's start with food. The great leader can't have any problem with us throwing money around at least." He walks off, and Han muses, "Good grief, so vulgar." They find a place to eat okonomiyaki, and Ryuji's impressed. "Phew. Great job, Hiroshima. I underestimated you." He then grumbles at Han for just drinking tea instead of being proper company. But Han just says he's on duty. Ryuji tells him to stop being so hard on himself. He must be hungry. "You and me, we've faced death together. Doesn't that make us buddies, at least?" Han says, "If you refer to what happened in Kinecho, then that was also my duty, nothing more. If I was to return to headquarters carrying your dead body, my mission would not be considered a success. Ryuji frowns. Damn, you're cold. Ooh, here's another restaurant. They go to the oyster bar, where Ryuji enjoys fresh oysters and beer. Complimenting the master on his work, Han asks how many plates he's had now. And Ryuji says with something that tastes this good, he could keep eating forever. He tries to get Han to try some, but Han again refuses. Ryuji says he hasn't seen Han eat a single decent thing since they met, and says there's no way they have anything as good as these oysters in Korea. You're wasting your life here. Han just asks if he's really going to stoop to such cheap provocation. Ryuji says Han's drooling. Han says you're joking. And Ryuji says, come on, you're hungry, aren't you? Eat. It's not like you're allergic or anything, is it? Han again refuses. Ryuji says he's had a great idea, but first, eat. If you don't like it, I'm a man of my word. I'll go to Korea with you. Han's surprised, then says he'll take that as the alcohol talking. But Ryuji says he's serious. It's a promise. Han accepts, thinking, is he an idiot? All I have to do is say this tastes bad. But he can't help himself. So good. Ryuji bursts out laughing and tells him now he might as well eat his fill. And here, have a beer too. Afterwards, Ryuji asks Han if that was worth coming to Japan for. Han says no comment. Ryuji says, no harm in enjoying life, is there? No one minds if you cut loose a bit when you're on a business trip abroad. Where's the fun in being all duty and mission all the time? Han says, well, I know no other way of living. He asks Ryuji what his most painful memory is, and says his is of when he was a child, starving, and he was beaten up by a group of adults for stealing one small carrot. If he hadn't been taken in by the Jingweon, he'd have starved to death long ago. He says, actually, my life ended a long time ago. Now I live in the role of Hanjun-gi. That is all it is. Ryuji asks if it's a fake name then, but Han pleads no comment again. That was careless of me. I said too much. Ryuji says it was a grim story, and then thinks of his own most painful memory, of being in the fire at Jingweon HQ in Kamurocho with his mother. Han interrupts his flashback because they're suddenly under attack. He thinks they're Yume Rengokai, but Ryuji says they're not. After the fight, Han comments that they were on a different level from the Kinecho attackers. A voice says, I thought since you're drunk, it would be an easy victory. But no, I should have expected this. Ryuji recognizes the new arrival. It's Takayama. It's been a while, Ryuji. Your dad's missing you, I think. Ryuji tells him he's as good a liar as always. Omi Rengo Jiki-san Go-Ryukai, Takayama Show. There's a flashback to Takayama visiting Goda Jin at Omi HQ. Takayama says he's come to see how Jin is doing, and Jin tells him not to be concerned with that. As the next Wakagashira of Goryukai, he should be directing his concern towards the men under him. Takayama says he very much wants to be doing that, but he's the kind of person who worries about details. The detail he's worried about is Ryuji. Everyone expected Ryuji to be given the second-in-command position, so he asks Jin why he didn't give him it. Jin says, like he said before, Ryuji doesn't take the Yakuza business seriously enough. He's popular, but he's not someone who should be in charge of other people. So that's why he threw him out. Takayama says he finds it amazing that Jin could do that, even to your own son. He uses shi no shizi, which makes it clear that he believes Ryuji to be Jin's biological child. He asks if Jin has any plans to rescind the expulsion, and he says no. Takayama says he's relieved to hear that. He excuses himself and leaves. Back in Onomichi, Takayama's just told Ryuji about this conversation. Ryuji asks if he really came all the way to this middle-of-nowhere place, just to tell him that. Takayama says he's the kind of person who's concerned about details. He asks Ryuji if he thinks that what Jin said was true, that he has no plans to take Ryuji back. What proof is there that he won't change his mind and give Ryuji the position after all? He's come here to make sure he won't have to worry about that happening. Han points out he's bringing Omi's internal quarrels here and asks if he thinks Yume Rengo Kai will just ignore that. Takayama says, "You make a good point, silver-haired boy. People who pay good attention always go far in this world. But there's no need to be worried. I've made arrangements with the people concerned. Whatever happens here tonight will be completely overlooked. I spent a lot of money on that." Han says, "I see. Certainly, compared to Goda-sama here, you do seem to be someone who will go far." Ryuji comments, "Harsh." Takayama says it's just Han's bad luck that he's going to end up feeding the fishes in the Seto Inland Sea with Ryuji. But he has to make sure there are no eyewitnesses to Ryuji being in Jingaicho. Ryuji says do what you want. After defeating the first wave of Goryukai attackers, Han asks what they should do, and Ryuji decides to run away because there's so many of them. Takayama calls him naive. They run into the shopping center since it looks clear, but Takayama pops up. "Sorry, but my preparations are flawless." He tells Ryuji there's no point disturbing people with a lot of noise so late at night. "A man should know when to give up. So be a man and let me kill you." Ryuji chuckles. "It's not in my nature to follow orders from anyone other than myself." Takayama says then he'll respect Ryuji's wish, but he's still going to here. After Ryuji and Han beat up all Takayama's men, he compliments them on their strength and says he wasn't displeased by the idea of being second in command to Ryuji. "If you'd taken over the gang and I was your Wakagashira, I'd have been happy with that. But, well, I'm a Yakuza too. I'm not going to let a chance like this pass me by." He pulls out a gun and shoots at Ryuji, but Han takes the bullet. Ryuji asks Han what he thinks he's doing, and Han says, like he said before, his only aim in life is to take Ryuji to Korea. So if Ryuji dies, he'll be in trouble. Takayama says Han is more of a man than Ryuji is. But now it's time to finish it. Ryuji exclaims, "Fuck's sake, everyone's just pleasing themselves here." He picks Han up and runs away with him. Takayama shoots again, but misses. He sends his men after them. Ryuji and Han end up in the graveyard. Go-Ryukai are everywhere and have the roads blockaded. Ryuji asks Han if he's still alive. He is, but he's bleeding heavily. Han tells Ryuji to leave him and go on alone, since all he cares about is Ryuji joining Jingweon. But Ryuji says he's not going to follow Han's orders. He'll do things his way. Han says the fact that Yume hasn't interfered so far means what Takayama said must be true. And in such a small town as this, it's highly likely they've got everyone to cooperate, including any medical clinics. So there's no point trying to get help. Ryuji says he makes a good point, and Han thinks he's convinced him. But he's just given Ryuji an idea of a way out. He takes Han to Iwami's house and shouts for Iwami to come out. He has to fight some guards first. Then he takes Han inside. A voice comes over a speaker saying, "Ryuji lives up to his reputation." Ryuji asks if he's talking to Iwami, but the voice refuses to give a name. Ryuji asks him to call a doctor for Han, but the voice says he has no reason to give in to Ryuji's demands. Ryuji says if he doesn't, he'll kill him, and the voice asks if that's his style, forcing people to do things with threats. You're so young, and your world is so narrow and superficial. Ryuji's outraged, but Han's coughing up blood. The voice says, "I have no more to say. I'll leave you to deal with the corpse. If you keep pushing it, Go-Ryukai won't be your only enemy here." Ryuji says he hasn't finished talking yet. He asks for confirmation that Iwami agreed not to interfere with Takayama. If things don't go as planned, you'll lose face. And you'll also owe Omi a big debt. So you have to keep your promise to Takayama, right? But Iwami-san, what time is it now? Don't you have a watch? I do. And it's 6:52 a.m. I have a great memory, you know. I remember everything Takayama said. Everything that happens here tonight will be overlooked. Tonight, he said. That's not just a figure of speech, is it? Letting people from elsewhere fight it out on your territory, that's a big inconvenience for you. I doubt you'd make a vague promise like, "until it's dealt with." Bullseye, right? So that means you no longer have any obligation to Takayama. The voice chuckles and says Ryuji argues like a child. But what of it? For someone like you, with no organization behind you, what do you have to bring to the negotiations? Ryuji says he'd owe Iwami a big favor. Isn't that good enough? I can do anything in the underworld or in decent society. Go-Ryukai, Omi, don't compare me to those pathetic incompetents. In 10 years' time, I'll bring you 100 times the money Takayama gave you. The voice realizes he's dealing with a complete megalomaniac. He decides Ryuji would be a good investment. So he invites him in and directs him to a medical treatment room. Takayama realizes it's morning. One of his men reports that they lost Ryuji, so Takayama shoots him for being pathetic. You win this one, Ryuji. Han wakes up in the middle of nowhere and asks what happened. What about Takayama? Ryuji tells him they've left Hiroshima. He's disappointed he never got to try onomichi ramen, though. Han asks how they escaped, and Ryuji tells him to stop fussing over the details. Do you think you're Takayama? He says Kiwami organized Han's medical treatment and then sent them here on a boat. Han asks why Ryuji saved him. What benefit was there in it for him? Ryuji says, I hate to owe anyone for anything, but you shielded me. All I did was pay back the debt you forced on me. Han thanks him. Ryuji chuckles. Damn, you're stiff. Why not tell me you'll try to enjoy life a bit more now, Han? Han smiles and says he doesn't need Ryuji's advice. Meanwhile, at Tojo Kai HQ, Sarah is meeting with the acting second chairman, Nihara. Ignore Sarah's gun, that's just his default pose. Tojo Kai Wakagashira, Sarah Masaru. Tojo Kai, acting second chairman, Nihara Takashi. Nihara wants to discuss Ryuji, who they've been keeping under surveillance since he was thrown out of the Yakuza. He tells Sarah Ryuji's come into contact with a certain person who is now moving with him. Sarah asks who that is, and Nihara says it's a Jingweon member called Han Jungi, a fake name. Sarah's shocked that the Jingweon are active again. Nihara says while they don't know what they're planning, they can guess. The Jingweon see Ryuji's banishment as temporary, so they're sticking close to him with the aim of eventually infiltrating Omirengo. He says Ryuji becoming a Jingweon spy would be the worst possible thing that could happen, could even result in the organizations merging. It's not a situation we can ignore. Sarah says since Ryuji's been banished, he can't be treated as a Yakuza. But whatever your orders are, I will fulfill them. Nihara says no. Sarah will be third chairman soon, so he has to keep his hands clean. He's going to ask someone else to deal with it. He has the ideal candidate for the job, a bottom-rank organization who'll kill anyone and arouse no suspicion. The killer Arakawa Gumi.